I want to ask you about Hamlet. Do you think most of the criticism of the play, I think it's fair to say, is rather Hamletocentric? It sees it through the prism of the main character. Do you think that's right?
It's sort of inevitable because of all Shakespeare's characters, Hamlet is the one who most dominates his own play and who has the most long and complicated soliloquies. So if we think of Hamlet, we immediately think of To Be or Not to Be and the other great soliloquies, the sense of the interesting, complicated character talking to himself aloud on stage with the audience theatre, and in so doing, opening up the human condition, the human psyche. Of course, people begin with that. But the fact is, Hamlet is equally a play about politics, court intrigue, about a political world in turmoil, and indeed about war. There are a lot of soldiers in Hamlet and a lot of fighting. And there is definitely a tendency, I think, in criticism to focus too much on Hamlet. Interestingly, some of the best productions of the play have done much more in bringing alive the politics of it. There's that very interesting tradition in the late 20th century of productions in Eastern Europe under the Stalinist regimes, where productions of Hamlet were used at a time when new political plays were banned. Productions of Hamlet were used as a way of offering a criticism of the tyrannical regime. Through the representation of Gertrude and Claudius. And
there's no suggestion that Claudius would have been a bad king, and Hamlet probably would have been a bad king.
In some senses, you think, well, maybe Claudius is an even better king than old Hamlet was. I mean, old Hamlet seems to have spent his afternoons asleep in the orchard, which is a bit like an American president spending his time on the golf course, isn't it? Whereas Claudius, in that opening scene where he dispatches the court business, he deals the ambassadors from here, the Laertes going to Paris there. He's just on the case. You can see Claudius, this man is a very efficient administrator and bureaucrat and leader.
On the ghost, how seriously should Hamlet take the ghost?
Well, Hamlet should take the ghost very seriously, and he's quite right to set up a number of tests of the ghost's veracity before committing to believing what the ghost has said. The possibility that the ghost might be the devil assuming the shape of his father in order to tempt Hamlet into wrongdoing. That possibility has to be tested. Now, the question of where the ghost comes from is a really interesting one, because the language the ghost uses definitely suggests that he has come from purgatory, that his life has been cut off before he can confess his sins, and he's doing time in purgatory. Now, that's interesting because purgatory was a Roman Catholic idea. Shakespeare is writing in Protestant England, where purgatory has been abolished. What is more, Hamlet has been to university at Wittenberg, which was the place associated with Martin Luther, essentially the father of the Protestant Reformation. Is there some sense in which old Hamlet from purgatory is an embodiment of the old Catholic ways, and young Hamlet from Wittenberg is the embodiment of the new Protestant ways? The play explores so many aspects of the human condition, but that particular historical moment of the transition from Catholic dogma to Protestant, and in particular the Protestant emphasis on the individual conscience, such an important word for Hamlet in his soliloquies, that is one key aspect of the play.
Of course, we know what Claudius did because we see him at prayer, but Hamlet never knows, does he?
I think Hamlet can be pretty confident once Claudius breaks up the play. But of course, what then follows is the moment that he has the opportunity immediately after the play to kill Claudius, and he doesn't. Why does Hamlet hesitate at that moment? Is it, as he explicitly says, because to kill Claudius while he is praying would send him straight to heaven, because Claudius is being penitent, and that doesn't seem like appropriate requital given the fact that old Hamlet is not in heaven but in purgatory? Or does Hamlet hesitate because he's not absolutely sure of Claudius's guilt? He's not absolutely sure that he should be taking on the role of revenger himself. Should he maybe be leaving it to God? These are fascinating questions to discuss.
And the general question of delay, is it because he thinks too much, or as somebody else put it, thinks too profoundly?
Well, that's, in some senses, what Hamlet himself says. But the other way of looking at it is actually, well, does he delay so much? The fact is, he doesn't know for sure that Claudius is guilty and that the ghost is to be believed until the mousetrap, the play within the play, is put on. But immediately after that, Hamlet is going to be watched and guarded. You know, in a sense, he doesn't delay. What does he do? He doesn't kill Claudius while he's praying because he doesn't want to send him to heaven. He then thinks he has killed him behind the arras in Gertrude's bedchamber. He thinks that's Claudius he's stabbing. Of course, it's not. It's Polonius. From that point onwards, Hamlet is closely watched and guarded. Then he's sent off to England. Then he escapes from the pirates and so on. He gets back and he gets into a situation where, by means of the duel with Laertes, he's able to kill Claudius. Looked at that way, there isn't any delay at all. It's just that Hamlet keeps talking about delay.
What view of the human condition do you think Hamlet as a play leaves us with?
Well, that's a huge and
Very big
unanswerable question. From the point of view of Hamlet himself, I think the key thing the play suggests is this sort of journey towards the acceptance that there is a time for everything. Hamlet moves from that restless, inquiring, questioning mind that is constantly on the move and unable to settle. He goes through that into a state of a certain kind of acceptance. There's a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be not now, 'tis to come. If it be not to come, 'tis now. That sense of acceptance, let it be. That's a pretty powerful journey to have gone through and a pretty powerful message for us as human beings. We shall not cease from exploration, T.S. Eliot says, but the end of all our exploring will be to return to where we began and know the place for the first time. That's kind of the trajectory of Hamlet as well.